that's name and description. So when we print this out, it's going to take the current album ID and give us the name and the description from it. So let's refresh. Okay, so we've got a slight error here. MySQL fetch, right, it's not a supply valid. Right, okay, so let's take a look at our query. That means we have an error in our query, so let's have a look and see what might be wrong. Okay, it all looks okay to me. Oh, okay, so yeah, we haven't included the AND keyword in there, so obviously we're selecting the album ID and then the user ID. I'm sure some of you that are watching have picked that up already. So let's refresh, and you can see here we have again the similar format to the user data function. We have the name equal to holiday and the description equal to some holiday photos. So we've returned the same thing. Now if we go back and we click on holiday 2, we click edit, we get holiday 2 and more fun. So we get the corresponding name and description. Now with this, what we can do is put these into name and description ready to be clicked edit and then updated. So let's go back to our text editor, click on edit album. We don't need to print R anymore, let's get rid of that. But what we do need to do is set this into its own variable, so album data. So now album data is equal to an array, because remember this album data function returns an array. So what we can do is we can come in here into our form and say value is equal to something, and we can do something in here as well. So this is where the text would go in your text area if you wanted to manually put a value in. So with regards to the name input type, we just start some PHP tags and end them, and then we echo album data. Remember that's our array here with return name and description. Then in brackets we put name. So we've taken the name from the array that's been returned by this function. We can then do the same with the text area. We can echo album, let's just come along, album data, but this time description. So we've just taken these values, we've specified them here and here. Our function has returned these values, so return args. We've returned that result from the query, much like we did with the user data, and then we've just echoed them out inside of our text fields. So let's get rid of create album, we don't need that for now, and let's refresh. So now you can see that holiday and some holiday photos are inside of here. Obviously edit button does nothing at the moment. Let's go back and just click on holiday 2 edit, and you can see that it corresponds to the data that we have inside of the database. So now that we've got the form working correctly, we actually need to know how we can click edit and actually update these in the database. So let's go ahead into our text editor again. And just before we do anything else, we'll go ahead and check for people that are not logged in. Obviously we don't want anyone that's not logged in editing our album. We're also going to include a check a bit later on to see if the album belongs to us or not, because obviously you can change the get variable to edit other people's albums, and that's not what we want. So if not logged in, again we have this same routine here that we are relocating the user if they are not logged in, so index.php, and we exit. Okay, and down here in a moment we're gonna, well, there's a couple of things we need to check. We first of all need to check if we haven't set a get variable, so check get var set, and we also need to check if album belongs to user, and we're going to do that with another function, and that function is, let's go back, album check. So we'll do that a bit later on. Okay, so let's go down. Now once this form's submitted, we're going to lose the value up here, this album ID equals 56. If I click edit now, you'll see at the top, well, oh no, it does stay. Okay, yeah, okay. So in some circumstances it will stay. In some, I think some browser compatibility issues with this. However, if you're unsure, you can actually just type a question mark here and then say album ID is equal to, and then you can echo out album ID. So I probably recommend you do that. And now what's going to happen is when you refresh the page like that and you click view page source, you can see that down here you've got action equals album ID equals 56. So whenever you refresh this page, you'll have that variable stay. So hopefully that makes sense. The next thing we need to do is actually work out some validation of this data. So up here we're going to first of all check if our fields are set, as we've been doing in other form validation. So if is set $_post album name and the album description. If they are set, we can start to validate. So we first of all need to take the album name and put it in its own variable, just so we can use it down the page a lot easier. So $_post album name and album description, but we can just go ahead and copy this to be lazy. So album description, album description. So now we can start to check things like, are they empty, and the string name as well. So let's go ahead and if empty album name or empty album description, then we put something in the errors array, which we haven't actually defined. So let's go ahead and define that here. Errors equals array. So much like we've been doing with all the other form validation. So we could say album name and description required. Now otherwise we can create a new set of checks, and the only check we're doing, the same when we actually created the album, is just to check the string length. So I'm going to say if the string length of album name is greater than 55, that's the value specified in the database, or the string length of album description is greater than 255, then we need to add an element to the errors array, and that is equal to one or more fields contains too many characters.